All right, it's exactly 4:30. We are live on Facebook. I am D. Sharma, one of the founders of Wellness Coach. I have a honor and pleasure to have our special guest today, Rishad, and our coach, who I'm very inspired by, Andy Lee. So today's schedule is we're going to have Andy and Rishad introduce themselves. Then we're going to do a short mindfulness practice with Andy. And then we're going to dive deep into all the tough challenges that all of you leaders are facing right now and get Rashad to give us some wisdom here. I've been very fortunate to get his wisdom all these years, and now we get to share it together. With that, Andy, if you could please introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll follow with Rashad and then the meditation.
Sure. Thank you, Dee. Welcome everybody to today's session. I'm Andy Lee, and I'm a wellness coach here, former chief mindfulness officer at Aetna. So I'm feeling that these days I'm able, all the skills that I've built up over the years are coming in handy. So let's begin today's session with a brief mindfulness practice. And to do
Andy,
that,
Andy, before
yes,
we do the practice, let's have a quick introduction with Rashad, and then we'll do the practice. Hey,
of
Rashad.
Perfect. Hi, I'm Rishad Tobaccowala. I am now a author of a book called Restoring the Soul of Business, Staying Human in an Age of Data, and a speaker. I'm also an advisor to a company called the Publicis Group, where I spent nearly 4 decades in various roles, based in Chicago.
And actually, I want to make a quick point here. If you guys can see from my virtual background, the book is it's hard to see. I get it. Yeah, there we go. I want you to see it now. We'll give you a free copy of the book on the chat box. Just say, hey, I want a copy of the book, and we'll ship it to you. Somebody will take care of it. So free copy of Rashad's book distributed today to anyone who wants it. Let us know. That said, Andy, let's get started with a grounding practice here, and we'll get the session going right after that.
okay, thank you. And it's an honor to be here with you today, Rishad.
Thank you. Likewise.
So beginning by taking a posture that is both alert and relaxed, straightening up the back, a posture that we call upright but not uptight, and letting the shoulders be relaxed, letting the hands fall into the lap wherever they're comfortable. And when you're ready, allowing your eyes to simply close or looking downwards with a soft gaze, whatever is comfortable for you. And just noticing what's present right now, noticing what it feels like to pause. Noticing the internal weather, what thoughts or emotions are present. And just letting them be just as they are, just observing. Bringing your awareness to the fact that you're breathing and tuning into the sensations of the breath. Noticing what it feels like to breathe in and out. Not needing to control or guide the breath in any way. Just following the natural rising and the falling of the breath in the body. Breathing in, being aware that you're breathing in. Breathing out, being aware that you're breathing out. And knowing that right now, that's all that needs to happen for these few moments. And when you're ready, following 3 more cycles of the breath in and out of the body. Perhaps savoring what it feels like to breathe. And allowing your eyes to open again. Just allowing your body to stretch or move any way that it feels good right now. And with that, I'd like to turn things over to Dee again.
Thank you, Andy. Always a great way to start any meeting. Now that we're all stuck at home and doing our meetings the same way. And before we switch to Rishad, just a couple of things. We're giving the copy of the book away to anybody who wants it. Please put it on the chat box, and we'll connect with you and ship one to you. Secondly, it's an interactive platform. You can actually ask Rishad directly any of your questions. So the way that works is you can either ask a question on the Q&A box, or you can raise your hand and then we'll unmute your mic and then you can ask a question live with your voice. Now we'll get to questions in a bit, but I want to start with something I've been thinking of. And I know, Rishad, you and I have talked about this briefly. Why is the book more relevant now that we're stuck in home and dealing with this new reality? I would love to hear it from you.
Sure. The book was written to help people think, see, and feel differently about how to grow themselves, their companies, and their teams in transformative times. And what has happened is we are in much more transformative times than I had imagined. And many of the chapters in the book were about things that were likely to happen in the future, like, for instance, more and more people working from home. And that happens to be happening much faster than all of us are working from home. And it's very likely that when this passes, many more people will spend more time at home or working from home than before. So, and it also speaks a lot about how to manage things like change and how to lead with soul and the importance of emotion and the importance of human connection, which we are all now discovering that is extremely important and what we're missing. So in that way, it's more relevant today than it was before. And it almost feels like I wrote it knowing this was going to happen.
And I know we talked about this. I want to just make a comment here on chat box. Jim is saying one of the best books I've read in the last 12 months. So kudos to you, Rishad, and thanks, Jim, for sharing that. And all the fans of Rishad are here, and me included. So if you guys want to put your gratitude on the chat box, please feel free to do so. Now we want to start with some tough stuff that leaders are facing with right now. As we know, because of the economy being at a halt, workforce having to work from home, and several companies are sort of struggling more than the others, where like travel or many other industries. And Rishad, I'd love to hear your view on, like we talked about, qualities of leaders. What should we look in leadership quality in this day and age, and what's happening right now? How should they talk to their teams? What should they be focusing on?
So one of the most important things is to frame what is basically happening. And someone sort of asked me, since I've had 4 decades in business, what's my perspective on what we're going through? And the way I sort of look at it is it's 9/11. So some of us were around in 9/11, 2001, when we had the World Trade Center incident. Many of us were around in 2008, 2009 during the Great Recession. And what this is you take those two, you marry those two, and multiply it by X, and that is the factor. So this is something which is much deeper and much broader, because it affects health, which is who lives, who dies. It basically significantly impacts finance and the economy. So for instance, the total amount of, just look at the stock market, which isn't the economy, but if you look at that as an indicator, the stock market from its high to its low fell more in 30 days than it has ever in its history. And it fell more than it fell over the course of a year during the Great Recession. So it's massive financial, massive health, but it's also very much society, which is people are sort of asking, where is our government? What is the role of government? What is the role of schools, etc.? So the first thing is, this is something that is completely uncharted territory, and it's very important to recognize that. And so nobody has actually a roadmap. And as a result, there are 3 emotions that we all have. One is anxiety, which is anxiety about our health, our team's health, our loved ones' health. Second is we have fear, which is fear about our jobs, our finances, etc. And the third is we have uncertainty, which is A, we've never seen anything like this, and B, there doesn't seem to be a end date. So, all of us like to schedule calendars. There is no calendar year to schedule. So we begin with that. And then once we have that, there are sort of 5 characteristics I have basically stated that leaders should have. And all of us are leaders. So whether someone is reporting to you or not, I believe every individual is a leader. One is capability. Many of us have basically imagined that when the time becomes tough, we stand up and we are actually going to be amazing leaders. Well, so this is what I call the fulcrum, or the moment in the furnace. So this is when you stand up and show how good you are. So one is you have to be capable. And that is basically everything from showing up, helping people, getting your work done, etc. The other 4 are actually emotional traits. And oddly, when I wrote about this in my book, and I also did a lot of research, I wondered whether when you have 5 traits of which one happens to be capability and the other 4 are emotional, did I select them right? And they actually do make sense. The second one is integrity, which is this is the time when people have to basically trust what you have to say, because you may not have all the facts. And to a great extent, when we see, for instance, in the United States, when you see these briefings from the White House, you have Fanucci that people believe, and then you have our president where people are not exactly sure what he's saying. So integrity basically matters. The third, to a great extent, is empathy. And empathy has always been important, but now just think about the fact that the people you're looking at when they're at home, this is not just like working from home. This is working from home, not knowing you're going to keep your job, and your kids are with you yelling and screaming, and you're trying to figure out where to get toilet paper from, right? It's very, very different than before. The fourth one is vulnerability. And this weekend, people like Jeff Bezos and Satya Nadella and my own from my company, my own CEO, Arthur Sadoun, basically sort of explained what they themselves were grappling with from a human perspective, which is we ourselves don't know what it is. And the fifth one is inspiration, which is this too will pass. And what are positive ways of looking at this and not Pollyannish? So, one way I've been thinking about this is all of us have been given a 12-week respite to rethink our lives, right? So it's not through choice, but now you stay at home for 12 weeks, and whether you like it or not, you're with your family or not, and you have to figure out what's important and what isn't important, and that might be a positive when it comes out of this. So those are some of the things to think about: capability, empathy, integrity, vulnerability, and inspiration.
Thank you, Rishad. That's amazing. For those who are listening, we will take live questions. So if you want to ask Rishad or Andy anything, just raise your hand on the app. You can just click on that button. And those on Facebook, you can just download the app and ask us questions. We'll entertain them as well. Now, I'd love to ask both of you, Andy and Rishad, and get sort of maybe a little different perspectives here. Like you said, Rishad, it's a very different environment. You're now stuck at home. You've got kids and wife, and everybody's on their laptops. Internet bandwidth is not enough. Like a lot of the calls I've been on, the whole building never had enough bandwidth to support everybody working from home. So how do you stay calm? So that 12 weeks you said, we may have, how do you pass those 12 weeks in a way that you come out as a positive force in the end of it, rather than somebody that's been anxious, stressed out, and really struggling through those 12 weeks? I would love to hear both of your guidance. Whichever wants to go first.
Andy, why don't you go first?
Okay, thank you. Well, one of the things that I find really helpful is when people are new at working from home, and especially now when there's so much uncertainty, anything that we can do to create a sense of habit and a pattern in our days is very helpful. Anything that you can do to perhaps block out, even if it's just the morning or the afternoon, or if you can get more specific, just put some structure into your day and into your calendar and see if that can help you to organize yourself. Because many times we're juggling so many things in our minds that we don't know which way to go. And if in the morning we can sit down and just prioritize them to whatever extent is possible and try to give our days a little sense of structure, that's one thing. Another thing is to be realistic about the things that are possible to do from home and the things that might be actually be better to do from home and the things that aren't that realistic. And to think about, do you have time alone now, or are you constantly with your family or with other people? And what types of activities and what types of work lend themselves to your new situation? It may be different than the things that you were doing before in the office.
That's great advice. Brian, Rishad, would you want to add something?
I would completely agree with Andy. And one thing that I have thought about is because it's very hard to structure your day these days, because either because there are people, like if you've got kids at home or other things, as well as oddly because you're at home, and if you have a global job or even if a US job, sometimes appointments occur all over the place. So the one trick that I've sort of discovered is to set up 4 items in your calendar and make sure you get those 4 done without knowing exactly when you will do them. But you have to do them, because you might, if you can control the outcome of each day versus controlling the calendar, because it's a little harder to control the calendar unless, like me, you get up at 4:30 in the morning when nobody else troubles me, right? But otherwise it's a little bit difficult. And the 4 areas that I've sort of focused on is, number one, and there's this line that I read, which is called "Discipline is freedom." Okay. And today, the only control you actually have is self-discipline, because you can't control much otherwise, because every day is different. So if discipline is freedom, there are 4 areas that you should try to do. You should do one thing, you should have one portion of your day, which is basically about looking after yourself in some way, some sort of exercise. So until yesterday, I live in a building, it's a small building. So most people didn't use the health club. So it was open till yesterday. But yesterday they decided that's done, right? Fortunately, I'm in a place where I can walk 4 blocks to a running track. So the thing is, that's one thing to do, some sort of physical. The second is, this is a very interesting time to also think about doing something mental. I've always basically believed, and I think there's a chapter in my book, which is how to upgrade your mental operating system. This is the time to learn and to do new things, because you can say, I'm going to do one thing, and it could be read a book, read something, but do something that's a mental operating system. And ideally, when you try to do that when it's not connected online. Okay, so it could be a book, it could be a movie, but it could be a movie where you don't get notifications and stuff like that. So something like Criterion or something. The third area is you want to spend at least some time reconnecting with people. People is very important, and this is not only the people in your own family, but other folks, because you'll feel less weird when you realize that everybody is feeling weird, right? And there are these, virtual happy hours or quartinis or anything else. The fourth is, think about what you've always wanted to do and change, and now you have the ability to change. So for instance, if you wanted to drink less or drink more or change your eating habits or whatever it is, you now have a reason. You don't say, I have to be out, I have to be on a plane, I have to be at a bar. None of that's there. So the other one is reinvention. So every day, can you do something that helps you reinvent? So if you reinvent, connect with people, upgrade your mental operating system, and spend some time with your physical operating system, and say, I'm going to touch each of those once a day, every day, you'll find that you have that control, which makes you feel calmer.
That's brilliant. I think Andy and I are both taking notes here. What's funny, Rishad, we started Wellness Coach Meditation Live, and we all work remotely. So the whole office works remotely. So we don't have this need to go out. The whole company is remote. But now that they put restrictions in Miami that you cannot leave the house, it's creating like more anxiety. And I want to leave the house while there's no reason to, like how the mind works, But I love the way you put it, start thinking about upgrading yourself.
Yes.
And thinking about the areas you want to upgrade, and then start like charting that path. I love that.
That is very important.
Yeah, we do have a question from an audience. I'll just read it out. I think it's for Rishad. So let me start there. What can I do to help my team stay connected during the pandemic? Worried that the loss of all-day FaceTime is going to cause my team to lose the team energy connection we have built.
So one of the things to basically do, and if you haven't got my book, put it in the chat, and our friend here is going to send you the book free. So make sure you get this, because there is a chapter in the book which was built for this time. It was called Have More Meetings. right? And if I had rewritten it, I would have basically said, have more conversations. So when you are talking with your team, there are three key things whenever you have a business or other team meeting. One is what I basically call announcements. It's like a conference call, right? Where you're telling people, here's what's happening, here's the status of what's going on with clients, here's what's happening with everything. The second is meeting, which is the topics that you're going to deal. This is a client thing, we get this commercial ready, we got to get this, financing ready, whatever it is. The third, which you need to make sure you have, both from a team perspective and hopefully at least once a week with every individual you work with, is a conversation. So a conference call and a meeting is not a conversation. The biggest thing that we're going to miss in-person, when we get together, are conversations, because that's the stuff that takes place outside the room, whether it's in a bar. It's basically where you see someone and you begin to understand from their tone of voice and their glances what's going on. So I would try to schedule a conversation with your team in addition to meetings and conference as a way to put that together. The other one is this. There's a company called Automatic. They own WordPress and they also now own Tumblr. They've got 1,500 employees and they're completely distributed. But there are three key things that they do, of which two can still be done. The third can't be done, okay, at the current time. One is they make sure that when everyone connects, they all basically connect using the same technology. So 4 of them are in a room and one person is dialing in on Zoom. Everybody gets on their own computer. So there are 5, everyone's absolutely equal. So there isn't like someone's left out and someone's not there. Now, obviously everybody today is disparate, but that's one. Second is some of the things that they would do physical, like separating, celebrating an anniversary or a birthday, they still physically send the cake to people's homes. Okay, and so you actually have a physical artifact. The third thing, which I think we'll have to start doing in the future, it'll be a little bit more difficult now because of the rules, is they actually make sure that all the teams meet once a quarter at any destination that they like. They actually get together as a team. Because what is very clear is hopefully this problem we have won't last for more than 12 weeks. It's not 2 or 3 weeks, but 12 weeks. But when we get back, we have to sort of recognize how important in-person and human connection is, which is a big part of what my book is, because if we only look at the screens, we actually will eventually look at avatars, which are basically great for gaming, but terrible for relationships.
That's brilliant. I'm taking these notes too. So I think we do 3 of the 3. I'm super proud of that, but thanks for sharing. Now, we have a few questions for you. Again, Rishad, Jim is asking for guidance. He's saying, ask Rishad to discuss giving your people, the teams, a compass for guidance. And then second, he wants to talk about the LIFT mindset, L-I-F-T mindset.
Okay. So, one of the key things, and I'm going to have to basically pull out, because even though I wrote the book, sometimes I have to read it myself to remember what the hell I wrote. So, in this area of the LIFT mindset, which is sort of have more meetings, is one of the key things is the biggest guidance you want is you want people to leave a meeting feeling better about themselves, feeling transformed, feeling inspired, feeling listened to. So L is listen to them, inspire them, leave them with a feeling, leave them transformed, okay, to a great extent. And one of the biggest things that what I basically tell people, in these days, and I'm actually writing a piece which should be appearing in one of the, I think it'll be in 1 or 2 of publications in the next day or 2. They're editing it, but it already has appeared on my publisher website. They sort of jumped the gun and they saw it, and they saw what I was working on, and they've put it on HarperCollins Leadership. But in effect, what it basically is talking about is there are some things that we all need to do as sort of as human beings to sort of engage and figure out, how does the team work. And so what I basically sort of suggested is the following. Look, there are a lot of benefits to this remote working, but there are some issues. So you say, look, here are the 5 issues. The first one is we're living in a very emotional time. So anything you've learned about remote working is somewhat true, but it's not completely true. The other one is to make sure you recognize that all these technologies we use, whether it's Zoom or Slack or Google Docs or Skype, they are technologies that enable connections. They are not connections. People connect. Technology only enables connections. So a lot of people are talking about Zoom and Facebook and all of that. My whole stuff is, okay, you're basically talking about the plumbing, but you're not talking about the poetry, right? And the poetry are the conversations that people basically sort of have. I obviously mentioned those 5 capabilities, which are extremely important. But as importantly, this is the time to leverage art and storytelling like never before. This is when you can tell stories. I can tell you that all of us, assuming we all keep healthy and get past this, which we hopefully will all do, and this will end in 12 weeks, there is absolutely no doubt that we will talk about this for the next decade or two. Where we were, what we did, who we may have lost, what was the situation, etc. And how are we going to basically talk? We're going to talk about stories and art. And so one of the things that I'm doing a lot, and there's a chapter in my book basically called Inserting Poetry into the PowerPoint, which is the importance of art in business, is this is the time to get people to tell their stories. So even if people don't want to have conversations, you go around the room and say, what did you do? What's the funniest thing that happened to you? And what was the scariest thing that happened to you? And that just makes people feel more human and connected. And that's how people engage. And the other one is to ask people 2 very important questions. One is, how can you help them? And secondly, is tell them what you are grappling with and how they can help you. Because sometimes helping people helps people themselves.
That's brilliant. Now we have a very interesting question, and I know we're basically almost out of time, so I'm going to ask that, and then after that, Andy, if you could close us out. The question is for you, Rishad. How do you think the future will look like in terms of individuals becoming more germophobic or craving more social connections? And what impact do you think it will have from a media and creative perspective?
So I believe that when we go through what we are going to go through, and because this is, I do believe this is a 12-week thing, not a 2-3 week thing, right? So it's going to be 2 to 3 months of us doing this. So when we come out, there'll be 3 very significant changes, I believe. Some parts of our life will go back to normal because we are human beings. We like connecting with people. We like doing stuff. But there'll be 3 changes. The first change, which will be pretty dramatic, is I basically believe that people will think differently about government. Okay, they will basically hold their government more responsible, and they basically won't think government sucks, which is number 1, right? 2 is they'll think very differently about certain aspects of society, which is, should we be investing in healthcare? Is climate change for real? If pandemics could be real, can climate change actually be real? So somebody who goes up and basically says science doesn't matter, they're going to be shot dead. Okay, science matters, all these things matter, which will be a second one. The third is people are going to basically look, and this is why I tell leaders, this is the time that people are going to look back and say, how did you behave as a leader and how did your company behave? Because these are tattoo moments. It'll be forged in people's life, and some businesses will appear well and some businesses will not appear well. Now, when it comes down to media and creative, I believe that the media business will accelerate, that the changes we have seen will accelerate. So for instance, print magazines are pretty much going to be gone completely. More and more will go online. I think a lot of media businesses will basically become either completely digital or go away, which is sort of number 1. The second is from a creative perspective, there are only 3 ways of sort of thinking about it. I think creative or messaging that understands what people have gone through and now talks about purpose, values, and society versus just consumption I think there's going to be a change in consumption. Not that consumption isn't going to go back and we aren't going to, want expensive stuff and all of that, but consumption is going to change, because one thing that I think people are going to wake up is how close most people came to running out of money. Okay, and so a lot of people, make no mistake, are sitting and thinking, if I get another chance, I will behave differently. And so to a great extent, values, value, utility, all of that will basically begin to be very, very important.
Nobody could have said it better. With that, we're going to pass it to Andy. Andy, before you close us out, I just want to mention something here. Somebody mentioned that they are furloughed on Monday and they're looking for any jobs in media. So any of you are hiring, please put it on chat. And Andy, as you close us out, maybe something to help those who are in extreme stress or anxiety, they can relieve that. That'd be great.
And one more thing I think we were sort of discussing is if people like this, we're going to try to do this weekly, right?
That's right. We're going to do one hopefully next week, earlier in the morning. And again, if you want a copy of the book, just put it on chat and we'll send it to you. And I got a yes, please already on that. So Rishad, obviously always popular. So no question there. And lastly, I want to also say, if you like the platform, Wellness Coach is free for everyone for 90 days for your personal use or for business use. Just go to wellnesscoach.live and you can get it there. Andy, thank you, sir. Thank you, Rishad.
Thank
Please,
you.
close out.
And thank you for everybody who dialed in.
Thank you. So once again, straightening up our posture and letting our eyes close. Tuning into the breath. And reflecting on what's present right now. And all the information that was shared. And perhaps asking yourself, what is one thing that I want to remember? What is one thing that resonated with me? Taking our time to reflect. What is one thing that was said that I want to be sure to remember? And then asking another question. What is one action that I want to take? And perhaps even seeing yourself taking that action. It can be big or small. It can be new or something that you've done in the past that you want to get back to. And when you're ready, allowing your eyes to open again. And perhaps closing with some thoughts of gratitude for our guest and thoughts of compassion and kindness for everybody who's on this call and everyone that we know who's traveling through this time of uncertainty together with us as we're all traveling through this time of uncertainty together. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you.